Hello everyone, this is Simon from Stubborn Facts, and I'm going to try and have a first attempt at a vlog, and just to annoy the anti-Altasiana, we're going to say cheers. This is the house wine. This is the J. Lower Cabernet, so it's very appropriate. I thought we'd give it a try, and it's kind of nice. So I think it's So, what have I been up to? I had promised that I was going to write something about Massachusetts versus Environmental Protection Agency. And I think most people probably assumed I would have things to say, and I've commented briefly, but why haven't I written a post? The main reason I haven't written a post is because I've been writing it since the decision was handed down. My focus is on redressability, and if you read the post that I put up at the time that the case was argued, mostly everyone else who was focused on the standing question, and I guess to some extent this goes to the Chief Justice's dissent as well, they've kind of focused on the injury in fact aspect of the Jan, on one prong of the standing test. And I don't think that's necessarily inappropriate. The Chief Justice points out the alleged injury must be concrete and particularized, but the very concept of global warming seems inconsistent with this particularization requirement because it's a phenomenon harmful to humanity at large, and the redress petitioners seek is focused no more on them than on the public generally. It's literally to change the atmosphere around the world. Well, okay. So the Chief Justice and at all argument, I think Justice Scalia as well, were mainly focused on the injury in fact prong of Lujan, but Lujan has three prongs. You have to assert an injury in fact. You have to demonstrate that there was a causal nexus, that the person you're suing has caused this. And on top of that, the lawsuit you're initiating has to be likely to redress the injury that you've asserted. I'm willing to stipulate, and perhaps I'm unusual in this, I'm willing to stipulate that Massachusetts has satisfied the injury in fact prong. And what I'm less willing to do is to say that they've satisfied redressability. And so that's the focus of what I'm writing about at the moment, and looking at my word processor now, it's up to the really quite absurd 10-page point. How many footnotes have we got here? 45 footnotes. How far are we through? I've gone... The thesis of this is that I'm looking at all of the... There's about 30 of them. I'm looking at all of the decisions that have cited Lujan. Lujan is the cornerstone of standing analysis. It was decided in 1992. Very good opinion by Justice Scalia, and it very concisely laid out this framework, this three-prong framework. And the idea that I had was, well, let's go back and look at all these cases that I talked about. So anyway, I've kind of gotten to a point where I've done about 10 pages, and I'm mainly about 2/3 of the way through the cases where standing was found. I've not started really apart. I've written a section on steel code because I know that opinion quite well, and so that's pretty easy. Some of this stuff, though, I'm kind of addressing for the first time. Utah versus Evans. The census that's taken every 10 years. The constitutional grounding for that is the idea that every 10 years Congress is reapportioned, right? So every 10 years, in order to find out what the reapportionment is going to be, and this applies with particular force since I think it was in the mid-1920s, maybe the early 1930s, Congress fixed the size of the House of Representatives at 435 members. Okay, so you've got 435 members, you've got to redistribute those between the 50 states every 10 years. And so Congress has implied power to hold a census. It holds a census, and the Census Bureau used this best guess formulation of figuring out deficiencies in the data, right? So you've got these deficiencies in the data which are not that much individually, but they in some cases have concrete effects. And one of those was in the 2000 census Utah was not going to get the additional representation which it thought it deserved, and so it punched the litigate button, as you would. So, where was it? Utah, yeah. So, anyway, Utah sued, and they sued the Secretary of Commerce, I think it was, and North Carolina intervenes, and the case makes it to the Supreme Court, and North Carolina's argument as the intervener is, well, Utah can't get redress, and there are various reasons why it can't get redress. And the reason I like this case so much is because the court, in an opinion by Justice Breyer, joined, 4 members of the Mass versus CPA majority joined this opinion that says that there's no material distinction between this case and the case that was decided back in 1992 called Franklin versus Massachusetts. Franklin involved a very similar factual nexus. It involved a situation with the census, and the great thing in the Utah case is that in Franklin the plaintiff was an individual, and in Utah the plaintiff obviously was a state. Well, the court in the Massachusetts CPA case made a great deal of hay out of the weight of a state, the state being in litigation, and you could really see this in a lot of the Utah litigation. The opinion for the court explicitly said that it could find no significant difference between the plaintiff in Franklin and the plaintiff in Utah. To see that here we have a situation, a case where 4 members of this week's majority are basically saying there's no difference in that context. I mean, maybe they can wiggle out of it. We'll see. I'm not done writing yet. And so that's where I'm at. I'm writing, I'm not ducking out of this. Which is the point that I was making in that comment at SCOTUS blog, that standing is structural. If the decision on the merits is wrong, well, it's statutory interpretation, and if Congress doesn't like it, they can change it. That's why stare decisis is at its absolute zenith in statutory cases, because if the court screws up, it's no big deal. All that has to happen is that Congress passes new law or clarification, and the problem goes away. So on the merits, it's whatever happens on the merits is not a big deal. There's a quote that I'm going to use towards the end about quote, federal lawsuits are by their nature about seeking recompense from personal injuries, not about a public spirited debate. I'll let you figure out what that's a citation to. Some of you may know that phrase, and so you can probably guess who that's written by. You've got best of 3. I've kind of talked recently that there are kind of 3 brightest stars in my sort of legal universe, and obviously the first and foremost is Justice Scalia, and the other 2 are Justice Black and Althouse. And you can take your pick which of the 3 that's a quote from. But anyway, that's what I'm up to. I'm just kind of hanging out here and irritating the anti-Althausiana and drinking some wine and reading Supreme Court case law and standing and threshold doctrines. And that's my lot for the night. It starts to take a mental toll on you after 30 or so opinions. What's that quote from? Well, there's a nice quote in Late Night Confessions in the Heart of Wexler Hotel about forever confined to the antechamber, denied sustenance, and so having spent probably a couple of days basically just focusing on threshold doctrines and just trying to figure out the standing question, I kind of hope that I've not totally lost my mind at this point, and I'm hoping that when I actually file this thing on, I guess, Friday, maybe Saturday, and I'm going to stop talking now and get back to writing, and we'll see if this little vlog thing works out, and if it's kind of fun, then maybe we'll do another one at some point. So I say cheers, and to the anti-Aussians now I say fuck you, and good night.